He is the co-host of Heed the Call. It's Marc Sessler. What's the poop, fella? How are you?
What a pleasure to be with you. Just want to mention out of the gate, your hair is looking fantastic. You look
Is that
handsome.
right?
You're looking handsome. You've got a nice
Ah.
shirt on as well, but just the facial hair mixed with the mustache and the overall hair on top looking wonderful. Great minds, that's strong.
Back
I don't
at
know.
you.
Well, no, I mean less true of me, but a great mind. I think that's setting people up for disappointment in this conversation.
Well, listen, you're certainly one of the great wordsmiths forget sports media, but also social media and otherwise conversationalist. Of course, make sure you're downloaded to Heed the Call. He and Dan Hanzus and their collection of pals, making you wiser and more entertained about this game, which is really in short supply. Like I say, I don't get the angle here of people telling you on TV, telling the fans that their feelings are wrong over and over again, like you're doing this wrong, you're a loser. Is this definitely what the worldwide leader of sports, is this the proper message? I want to talk about all that, but before we do that, I say the most important game of all is the game of life. And my first question is, as I ruminate about the residents of Mount Pius giving me the business for, I like trying to make me feel guilty for saying that the star quarterback bears some responsibility for his team losing a big game, and this is wrong-headed on my hand. And then it brings me to the big question, the biggest question of all. So I ask it to you, Marc Sessler. Let's start at the very top and then we'll work our way down. Do you think you're going to heaven?
I would say the answer to that for me is not the heaven that is described in a book by a human writer that has never been there. Like I
Yeah.
think somewhere, something. Um, but the idea that I'd go somewhere good concerns me because I don't feel very good about myself most of the time. So I'm going
So
somewhere.
reincarnation is what you're is am I hearing you that, because that's the shortcoming, of course, for reincarnation is the human vanity slash narcissism that always puts you without fail, or you and me maybe would
Yeah.
be the exceptions to this. But of course, in your past life, you were surely the Prince of Siam or the
Oh,
star quarterback or something else. You weren't just a janitor in
no, no,
Toledo.
a
No, you were
position of
something better
notice.
than what you are now.
Yeah, a position of notice, like someone that would have been extremely high up for me to be this now. I must have learned so much from having been someone very important. Yes, I think we never just think, hey, I was like a lawn worker that lived in like Hackensack, New Jersey. Like I wasn't that, of course. I was
I had
someone
a
of,
part-time shift at Dairy Queen. I made Mr. Misty freezes for
yeah.
about like 25, 30 hours a week. Otherwise, the world was mine. I spent most of it in front of the TV watching Gomer Pyle reruns. That was my story
Yeah,
in my past
I
life.
was like largely redundant. It was the late 50s, early 60s, and I left very little mark on the earth. And so I've come back to do this. So yes, I'm with you on that. Like, but heaven, I don't know. That was an outrageous question out of the gate.
Well, I
Like,
said because I
yeah,
wanted to start with the heavy one, and then
yeah.
it'll be a little bit easier to make sense of these more grounded issues
These
about
terra
like.
firma type
Right.
questions. Yeah, yeah.
What was that quarterback fumbling the ball? Was that his fault, or did someone else step in there? Did somebody intercede? A higher power? I don't know who's to blame, if not the guy who fumbled the ball or the tight end who didn't catch the ball that was thrown into his belly. If they're off the table as being the people who you blame for the loss, and like I'm not sure where we turn beyond Jesus Christ. I think like that's where my head is. I don't know if that's who Andrews and Lamar are about, or if that's who. But I do hear that guy come up a lot after the game, um, in the winner circle. So it would be great. People have said that for decades now, but it really would be great if they're like, Lamar, where do you go from here? Like, I don't know. I don't know why Jesus is down on me, but clearly he is. Keeps making me fumble and throw interceptions in the biggest spots. He makes me look good, fills my head with all this nonsense in October, and then I have to suffer like this every time. Not cool. So I
Why
think
why is Lamar treated differently Because I think
I
specifically, it's like if it were Josh Allen, if it were, well, almost anyone, like 31 other quarterbacks. But like even on our show, we didn't go hard enough, according to some of our listeners, on the Lamar angle of things, that we weren't vociferous enough in our, critique of him. But like he does seem to be a media favorite that is, no matter what, lifted up and treated as like it's not his fault.
Do
Can't
you
blame
think
him.
it's sort of the same effect as the thing I bellyache about always, I mean for literally a quarter century at least, is preseason rankings in college football or college basketball. That is only going to lead to the people who make those votes in the preseason before you have any actual evidence self-validating to try and talk everybody else into what they thought before we got that evidence. And so people who decided Lamar Jackson's the best player in football and this is his time. Oh, it didn't work out and he didn't play well in the first half and got his team behind the eight ball there. Well, that won't stand. I have to talk my way around it, not as much for the guy so much as it is for me, because now I have egg on my face because of that performance. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Let's talk about all of this here. By the way, Eddie Spaghetti, very quickly, my vote would be I don't have a say in it. I hope you get to go to heaven because you've been in real sports hell the last 6 months or so. You know, with your Yankees. Yeah, it was neat. You were in Chavez Ravine, but then you saw the Dodgers and Freddie Freeman hit that home run in extras against you. You know what's happened. I don't have to give you all the details of it. It's been sad. Now punctuated by the Irish loss on the big stage there. I would vote for you to get to go to heaven if that helps you at all right now.
I think I want to be stuck in purgatory actually
Mm.
of just a repetitive cycle of being on the doorstep of winning a championship. So my life, well, my afterlife will be me just witnessing an almost championship for eternity. That's what I'm destined for.
Can I hold on? Can I? This
We're
is
on the edge of winning, but feeling like we're not going to get over the hump here. Yeah.
wait, this is completely absurd. This is that we're talking to Eddie Spaghetti, who I adore as a person, but like we're talking about a Giants fan here, who in his life has witnessed two Super Bowls over the Patriots. Um, he's a
Yeah, that's
Yankees
true.
fan, so that goes without saying that there's been endless success. It's like, and then I understand that the team that Notre Dame, the Irish individuals lose in the playoff situation there, but like in general, we're talking about someone that's like constantly on the mountaintop. Like this is a Browns fan you're talking to right here. Like, excuse me, Eddie Spaghetti. What is the situation here?
That's
That talking
he
to
has given you some important perspective
the
there, Eddie
Browns fan
Spaghetti.
thing, it's you're Mark. You're right. You're the probably the worst person I should be talking to in this scenario. But I do feel like it's funny to this because I'm sure later on in the show, me and Dave will talk in depth about the game last night.
Right.
And I was gonna say that I do feel like me witnessing those Yankees, those Joe Torre years, like the Jeter come up years with Posada and all that, winning those titles, and then getting the last one in 2009, and then the Giants, the two beating Brady twice. I like traded those championships. It's like it's balancing out where I'm never gonna really see the other teams I want to win. Like I want to see the Rangers and the Irish win more than anything. I'm never gonna get those is because you beat the greatest football player of all time twice, and because your Yankees have the most championships in all of sports and they are the most valuable friend, whatever it is. Like so, I just feel like I'm never gonna witness the other ones. And part of me is also being selfish that I was a tad younger when all those that titles happened, especially a large number of the Yankees titles. So it just stinks that right now in my I guess prime of my life, so to speak, I'm like an inch away from seeing the ones I really care about, and I just keep losing in title games or Eastern Conference Finals or witnessing the Yankees lose in person, like Dave pointed
It's
out.
it's like I've said, it's like my
Fair.
complicated self-esteem is owed to the fact that my earliest memories as a sports fans were surrounded by my teams winning the championships. Like when I'm like 10 years old. It's the anniversary of the Steelers beating the Rams in Super Bowl 14. I remember that happening, and that's all I understood was that the Pirates were good, Pitt football was good, the Penguins weren't, but they were that. And then I get as I get into the 80s, my teams basically all kind of fall apart. And now I feel like the rug's been pulled out from under me by the sports gods. And now here we are. where I have a cynical worldview here. Meantime, the commies are going to be playing the Eagles, an all NFC East, NFC title game, not including Eddie Spaghetti's New York Gents. That's got to hurt a little bit for Cowboys fans and Gents fans. The Eagles laying 6, that more or less confirms that Jalen Hurts is going to play. That's the expectation. But he does look like he's going to be hobbled. I don't know how he isn't going to be. As they said about Zay Flowers, John Harbaugh said before the Ravens game, he's got a shot, meaning he's going to take a shot in his knee, because I think that would be what greases the skids for him to be out there. If he's limited, obviously so too is that Eagles offense to some degree. Also, Bills at Chiefs. This is the big one. A little surprised that the Chiefs at home laying only a 1.5. Total is 47.5. My big concern with who wins these two games is it would be an aesthetic apocalypse if it's commies and Chiefs. The commies would have the right to choose the uniforms. If they went maroon and then the Chiefs wore them red pants with the red hats, it'd be hard to look at for 4 hours. How say you, Sessler?
Well, I've always thought that one of my favorite aspects to your sports acumen is just the aesthetic uniform matchup scenario. And you're absolutely right. We've got to be thinking about that. We've got to be cognizant of that. We've got to put our energy into that. I don't want to see Chiefs Eagles again. But like a Bills Commanders matchup would work for me on some level. But I actually kind of feel like there's no beautiful uniform dual scenario here. There's nothing that I absolutely, it's not Cowboys, Bills. It's not, you know what I mean? Like what would we be rooting for? I have to go Bills because it's basic colors. From that angle, like I think that this is a huge thing that people aren't talking about, but it's not. I'm not surprised that you brought this up.
Sure,
this is in your wheelhouse.
And you also wonder about the intrigue that you've seen over recent years, where some teams, even though they are the conference that gets to choose, they are the home conference. They could wear their home jerseys. The Chiefs did us all a favor by saying we're not going to wear our red pants against the 49ers red jerseys. We could, like, right. They did us all a favor by, or I guess the Niners did our eyes the favor by doing that. Yeah, like it would be weird actually to see the Chiefs and Eagles. By the way, spoiler alert, I lean that way right now. I'll make my official picks as the week goes on here. But I mean, I think that's the way it goes. I know that it's not terribly inspiring, but the one seeds, the teams that have a bye, I keep saying it, go to the Super Bowls an insane percentage of the time. And so now Detroit is out. They go away. The Chiefs are going to go. Half of the teams with a bye are going to wind up in the Super Bowl at worst. So the Chiefs, I think, are going to survive that one. Obviously, some things can change. I think the injuries on the back end for the Bills are not great news going up against Patrick Mahomes and those cats either. Okay, we're going to roll into these conversations, but you know what? We talk about the Browns. I don't know if I've mentioned it before. I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so it's kind of funny because you root for the Cleveland Browns, I root for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And talk about purgatory. We're in mutual purgatory in the QB league because we don't have a QB. So win, play, show. Marc Sessler, tell me what is plausible for the Browns among the options that are out there. Win, play, show, 1, 2, 3, your quarterback dreams for 2025.
I think they are really screwed because I would say, I'm not a huge college football person, but like a Cam Ward would be what I'd want. But I think he's going to go to the Titans at number 1. And then you've got, like Deion Sanders' son, and we know Deion, like he had a little room at NFL Network and he'd sleep in it during games, then come on and tell us how games work. But like he doesn't want his son to go to Cleveland at number 2. And so I think the Browns draft-wise are literally a bit hand-tied, and there's really no one out there in free agency. Don't try to sign me up for Kirk Cousins. I think what they can do financially is, it sounds like more and more that there is some sort of injury insurance that will allow them to get out of some of the Deshaun Watson situation with the Achilles.
It sure seems like it's tracking that way.
Right. Like it's like there's just more and more evidence that that's possible. But even the money doesn't work. Like the Broncos just did this. Like if you go get that rookie quarterback that you can get on a rookie quarterback deal with, I just don't know who it is right now. I think the Browns they are in purgatory and they fit there. They fit there because of their own decision making. They chose this. They did this. They created the worst trade in sports history. And welcome to it. Sit in it.
Literally true. Yeah, not hyperbole. By the way, I just did for Meadowlark for Lebitard. You can track it down on YouTube. A new what the if is something obviously we've talked about is shouldn't the Browns just have kept Baker Mayfield if they had the thing that people that I cover in that in that segment is in that piece I just did is the part everybody kind of skips over is people are like, Baker's not Tom Brady just because you keep him and don't get Deshaun Watson. But what you get with Baker Mayfield is retention of all the draft picks you gave away to get him too. So that roster would be so good around Baker Mayfield at this point. They would be, I mean, the Chiefs are in the way of everybody, but they would be, I think it's plausible they would be a divisional round team, maybe playing in the title game had they just not Browns this whole thing up. How say you?
I totally agree. I think you also have to look at Cleveland as a football town. It's different than Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh is a place that like football players dream. They dream of going to Pittsburgh because there's a meaning to that. Going to Cleveland has not had that meaning for a long, long time. I grew up falling in love with Bernie Kosar, who came from Youngstown, Ohio, who wanted to be a Cleveland Brown. Baker Mayfield was the first quarterback post Bernie that was like, I want to come to Cleveland. I want to be a part of this. I want to change this team. He has a shoulder injury after trying to tackle a player that was, that intercepted him. That's the kind of player he is. We know that. And he was not the same player during that final year, and they want to move on. They feel like he's a ceiling quarterback where they could have found something better with Deshaun. And like, my problem is that you've got to go find people that want to play for the Cleveland Browns. There aren't that many of them. In fact, I think you'll start to lose the Myles Garretts of the world very soon, if not this offseason, because this is not a destination football town right now. It is the opposite. And so when you've got a quarterback that came in there as the number one pick that took you to the playoffs, you go into Pittsburgh, and what were they up 21-0 out of the gate? And I know that wasn't a pleasant night for you, but you understand that the Browns Steelers nature of it made that such an historical, incredible evening. They hang on to win that game. And then a year later, you divorce your quarterback and go and make the worst trade ever. Like these are the people that did this, and they made the worst decision ever. And the owner, who has stayed out of it to some degree, like was involved there. And it's a shame. I feel I shouldn't even critique Eddie Spaghetti for rooting for competent sports teams, because that's what we should do. A child would not choose to root for the Browns right now. A child wants to root for something competent and a winner, and the Browns are not that.
Yeah, when you talk about bigger they are, harder they fall. Well, that's where I am now. Imagine me being a Steelers fan. This is all very unpleasant stuff.
You're in a new place.
With. Yeah, and I've contacted the aforementioned Dan Hanzus, who's given me some tips on the do's and don'ts of rooting for a losing team, because I'm just outside of the Pirates, not used to it in the football context. It's funny too that you say that about you need people who want to be associated with the Cleveland Browns. That's exactly what Hanzu said, and it sounds like they're going towards Aaron Glenn, the Jets icon to some degree and all of that. It sounds like he wants to be there. You got to be nimble enough that in this age of free agency and now NIL deals that some percentage of guys are going to be mercenaries, and you got to make your peace with that, I guess. Even Dabo did it. Dabo Sweeney, for the non-college football fans, has now sort of turned the corner on, like, for me to be relevant in this new world order, I obviously have to go after some transfers, NIL, and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, that's absolutely right. When you completely lose your soul like that, I think there's a price to be paid for that. I just don't know where the line is exactly. The secret sauce of the Cincinnati Bengals era is Joe Burrow, is an Ohio guy who wanted to be on the Cincinnati Bengals. That I don't think that's a small matter to then, the LSU wideouts and all of that, bringing them all together. I think that's an interesting point. My prediction is that it's going to be Kirk Cousins for the Browns, but I think there's an outside shot at. I don't think, to your point about Neon Dion, and what seems like a package deal. First of all, Dion imposing to an extent, like, you got to take Shador. If you want me, you got to take Shador, and if you want Shador, you got to bring me too. And the jury's out on Shador as a pro prospect. So that's one can of worms. I wonder if the Cowboys are really going to do that. I bet you that's what Jerry's looking at. It's not that he doesn't know for sure that he thinks Dion would be a good fit. I think he knows that if he brings in Dion, that then he has to bring in Shador as well. And if Shador is burning a hole on the bench, that's not going to be great either, with Dak there playing the leading role. So I think then they have to move Dak. And where are they going to move Dak? The Cleveland Browns. How about that?
Well, you're a masterpiece in the process when you come up with these like equations, and that is a really interesting idea. I could see that possibly. Like, I do agree with you that I feel like if you bring in Deion Sanders as your head coach, that like they've got to find a way to get up into the draft to do that. Like, that's a whole, and that could involve the Cleveland Browns too. There could be a lot going on there, but like, I could see that. Like, I also think that there's no way that the son of Deion Sanders burns a hole on the bench if Deion Sanders is the head coach.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Right.
And so I
Like,
think if
it
you're
all
Jerry
works
Jones,
together.
you're like,
Yeah.
Dion, we'd love to have you here, be a part of Dallas Cowboys. I think
Right.
he's going to have to come up with another excuse to not hire Dion beyond like, we're just real happy with Dak. We don't want Shador. Like, I don't know if Shador has a pro level arm. Like that's not a minor detail here. To me, I'm just throwing it out here. I don't know if I've made a formal statement in a public forum here, and I'm going to do it now. The absolute win move for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I get what the people will say about like, but we don't know yet. Move whatever asset you have to go up to number 1 overall and get Cam Ward. I think that is, I get the issues that people have with Cam Ward. The upside is massive. I think the flaws are maybe even a little bit overstated. He was on a mediocre roster with the U and just about won the Heisman Trophy. Eddie Spaghetti, that's a bold statement. You want Cam Ward too, though, right?
I'm not really in love with any
of
the quarterbacks in this draft. I agree with the Shador issue is, with his dad, and you don't want that helicopter parent. And, Cam Ward was just in an offense they're just throwing the ball constantly because Miami's defense was so bad that they were just constantly, I don't really know how to gauge that, kind of undersized. And I think the Giants are going to be screwed at the 3rd pick anyway, because I do agree with Mark in the sense that if the Browns know that he does not want to come there, they're going to end up just moving out of that pick and maybe trading up with like the Raiders or somebody, where I think Dion would let his son play in Vegas. So I think I'm in a position now where it's like Kirk Cousins or Drew Lock or something ridiculous.
It's funny because I don't know if I have to retract my QB saturation thing that a decade ago I say there aren't 32 people on the planet Earth capable of playing starting quarterback, and then all of a sudden it felt like, well, there are about like 40 guys now who are starter level quarterback talents, and now I mean all
back.
3 of our teams. I think they're out there. That's what's vexing about it. I predict it's going to be Justin Fields in Pittsburgh. It sure sounds like that's what they have figured, which, by the way, makes Dave Dameshek right. Dave, 2024, early spring, whatever, March 2024 to present day, no one has been more right about how this quarterback thing's going to shake out than Dave Dameshek has. But I keep saying that it's going to wind up being Justin Fields. It will be Justin Fields. All right. So now to what I really wanted to talk with you about. And I pride myself, or always have, on being society's foremost empath, and I feel like I've been knocked off my perch, first by Nick Saban, who got after everybody for caring too much about college football, even though he's being paid handsomely to talk about that and promote it. in his television gig. And prior to that, if you heard, he made lots of money and became an icon in the first place by coaching football in an insane environment in the SEC. But now it's too much, says Nick Saban. Now you have Dan Orlovsky, because as it turns out, well, he talked to Lamar and he knows Lamar really wanted it. And so he felt bad for Lamar. So then he said, anybody who goes after Lamar for this loss is a loser. You can't put this on him. And I go back to like, okay, empathy aside, who else are we supposed to blame here? What do you make of this new vibe in the media here, getting after fans for caring?
It's self-righteous. It's annoying. It annoys me out of the gate. You could be a 6-year-old football fan and you know how you feel about a game, and you know how you feel about the quarterback and the way that people played. And this is, to me, a very much Lamar issue, like we talked about a bit before. I think it is certain quarterbacks get treated differently than others in terms of critique. I don't know why we're not allowed to critique Lamar Jackson. Like, he is an MVP level quarterback, and then the playoffs come, and I get it. Like, you can frame that game and say that was not all on him. He did have 2 turnovers in the first half that were costly. You can't do that again. I'd say if we knew out of the gate you're going to go play the Bills and you're going to have 2 bad turnovers in the first half from your quarterback, like, we'd say you're probably going to lose the game, right? But then in the afterword of it, it's like, well, no, we can't point the finger at that one individual. Why? I mean, I get that it's more than just him too. Like, I'd point to a number of things, and Mark Andrews is part of it.
That's the assumption. So it's all Lamar. Yes, that's exactly right. So then it turns into the straw man thing to infantilize you for saying, well, I mean, he's the quarterback and he carries them. And so if he doesn't meet the standard that he has established all season and all career long, then he is culpable for that. I mean, it is what I have said about Tom Brady forever. Tom Brady, the perception is, how does he do it? He's so clutch. He rises in the biggest moments. No, he doesn't. What he does is he keeps playing the way he always has played. Lamar Jackson failed to do that. Lamar Jackson wasn't asked to go like, hey, man, I know you were great for the 17 games and last week, but like, now you got to do something different if we're going to win this game. All you had to do was do the same thing. It's harder to do against high-end competition in big spots. That's why it's exciting. Do we watch movies and then say, like, I don't know, this is too... Luke and Vader are both so powerful. Who cares who wins? They're both great. Like, it doesn't make a difference. Whatever. What are you doing, audience? You're blaming... Well, what the hell? What, how much are we supposed to tie ourselves into knots with this crap because you feel sorry for the guy because you know him? And it's a humble brag too. It's just that I know him. You don't know him, unwashed masses. I know him as a person, and I know he wanted to win. No shit, he wanted to win. He's the quarterback of the team. This is his life's work. I think Josh Allen wants to win too. I bet Patrick Mahomes would like to win another one again. How about that? I mean, it's not tough guy stuff, but that's how you then get positioned, as if you have the temerity to say, like, in the quarterback league that this. And by the way, it's not just Lamar Jackson. Guys, get called out in the quarterback league when they are the face of the team and they don't get it done in the big spot. But that doesn't mean, like, I'm capable of empathy and I feel sorry for him. Like, I'm sorry to say, these are not children who have devastating illness. These are multimillionaires in the prime of their career, much like Eddie Spaghetti. What did he say? It was in the prime of his life. These guys are in the prime of their lives. Everywhere they go. Okay, so for a few days, for a few hours, they're like, tough one, Lamar. Hard to make eye contact with you because you're so great. You've been so heroic, and hard to say, but yeah, that one's kind of on you, or large on you and your favorite tight end, Mark Andrews. But the backslaps will return. Rest assured, Dan Orlovsky. Lamar Jackson isn't going to be isolated in Charm City as the man who has hurt our feelings. I mean, I don't know exactly what we're supposed. And is there someone that I'm missing here who's responsible for this? And then that I guess the second part is the more interesting part with what you're getting at is so Lamar Jackson, we are expected to feel sad for, but I have not heard anyone call for the same to Jared Goff. Jared Goff was a first overall pick. So in terms of pedigree, this is this is a bigger fall on some level than it is for Jared Goff. And he fell on his face again. And this isn't the first time. So we should feel worse for Jared Goff, right? But we don't. And maybe that has something to do with our short-term memory society, that it really does feel like when you're watching NFL playoff rounds, whatever happens on Saturday by Monday is so far removed from your visceral self that it's like by like Tuesday or Wednesday, you come out like, boy, we haven't talked about that. Was pretty weird. The Lions lost by 2 touchdowns to Washington, right? We're just now, I feel like, coming up for air and recognizing, man, can you believe that team lost? Because we're so consumed with the feelings of Lamar Jackson. Not what Lamar Jackson did on the field, but how this makes Lamar feel. And now, more importantly, how it makes Dan Orlovsky feel. How say you?
Well, and who's crying for Russell Wilson?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Russell Wilson just lost a playoff game, and he's been through his reputation and his legacy has been dragged through the mud multiple times. And, you could say that Jared Goff also has gone through a ton and changed his career and changed the way we feel about him. He just suffered a playoff loss, and there's no consideration for that. And I don't know why we're treating, it's not just Lamar Jackson, but why are we treating any quarterback differently? And you are right. He is probably 14 hours away from boarding a flight to Cancun with an extremely hot person of the opposite sex, and he's going to have a wonderful time. This is not someone that is about to be admitted to a children's hospital. I don't know what, I don't understand the reaction to some of this stuff in general.
I'm not a hardo. I'm not a tough guy. I legitimately feel bad. I think, as I always say, there's something Shakespearean about it. When you are the guy, it's sad sad, but in a theatrical way. He's a real human being, but it's the greatest reality show of all time. But, to the person sitting on their couch watching these games, there is a disconnect from the fancy pants people telling us about what's going on TV and the way we consume it. And somehow it's jump past it. I, as the personality on TV, have to convince you of something. And I'm all for it. These are human beings, you understand. This is a tough moment for him. But of course, that's what makes it so fascinating. If it were robots, it wouldn't be compelling. The fact that this guy has done it all and he understands and says before the game, I've gotten nervous in some of these games. It's figure skating is a sport that none of us know anything about. And yet it's semi-interesting once every 4 years, because you might see somebody who has done this for 12 hours a day for the last 8 years, skating around and around and around. And can they do it, though, when they have pressure on them? It's why the Masters is great, why the 17th and 18th holes of the Masters. Those cats have been out there swinging that club back and forth day after day, night after night. Now all they have to do is just repeat that swing a couple more times and they get a green jacket, and they can't do it. Some percentage of them can't do it. And that is fascinating to us to experience. But don't watch TV then, because it shouldn't count, according to those guys. What we maybe should do is, I want to come up with some things to avoid our feelings, Mark. That's ultimately what we have to do. Your feelings are wrong. So what could we do? I'll start us off here. I float that we make that the playoffs are now non-existent, and we just now play an endless football season. And then no one ever has to really get down in the dumps. It just goes on, because apparently that's all that really matters, is getting to watch, because that, it doesn't matter. They're both great. Josh Allen and Lamar are both great. Why can't you appreciate that? So to lean into just appreciating it, they'll just play. There will be no stakes to it, but that's not the point. You're a loser if you care about wins and losses, according to Dan Orlovsky and to Nick Saban and people like that. So maybe it just is, it's untimed and it just goes on forever. How say you?
Well, that's the solution. That's the society that we are in now, and that it feels appropriate. And it's like, look, it could be week 48 of the NFL season, and this team is 12-31, and we're having a great time, and everyone is a winner, and there's highlights, and we just have red zone nonstop, and we just like talk about, let's look at everyone's touchdowns today, how special everyone is, how wonderful it is to be Eddie Spaghetti in the prime of your life.
About that. Right. Yeah. And then there's nobody did anything bad because you can't do bad because you can't lose the game anymore. Yeah, we'll have to do away. Like there's this thing about like when you're watching sports. I don't know if you ever, it's exciting. It's like when a guy does great or a team does great, it's thrilling to watch those wins. That victory. It's thrilling. But the thing that's bad is that like when you lose, when you get defeated, it can be agonizing. There can be some agony with that.
You take it on.
The part we have to do.
Take it on yourself too.
We can't have this agony anymore. We have to remove.
You know what? I'll say one thing, like the drive and the fumble. When I was in 6th and 7th grade, you were young then as a sports fan. You were learning about sports. And the drive and the fumble, the drive broke my heart surprisingly. The fumble, a year later when I knew the names of the players' wives. I was so invested. I'm drawing pictures of these people. Like,
I don't know why you would know that. But
no, just because I'd subscribed to this thing called Brown's News Illustrated. It was just an insane, it was from Maniacs. And then the fumble happens to my favorite player, Ernest Biner. And you know what? I'm glad it happened, not to them, but to me, like to learn that when I was young, to learn true defeat, where even the day later, I thought, I bet they'll come up with some rule change that will reverse all that. Well, they didn't. You just lost. And why can't we do that now? And I think many people can, but why are some channels telling us you shouldn't accept this? Someone's not, someone's not at the forefront of this.
Do I seem to you, I ask this legitimately, not rhetorically. Do I seem aggro to you, Sessler? Do I seem like I'm because sometimes people tell me like you're a troll, man. You get into it with people on social media and otherwise. I'm like, me? I respond to people. I hold the racket out and let their stupidity do the work for me, and the force of their dumb remarks bounce right back at them. I'm not looking to fight with people or to argue with people necessarily beyond like I think that guy's better than that guy is, which is what's fun about being a sports fan. I don't care. I don't get angry about that kind of thing. But I feel like the empaths want you to feel that. They have to ascend up to Mount Pius and make it clear that you are wrong and a child for blaming the person primarily for the loss for losing the game. Spaghetti, I think you think I'm a little more argumentative than I am. True? Do you think? Well, I mean, you can argue that I'm more argumentative than I think I am, but all right.
I mean, I'm just gonna say I think so yes, the media. I'm trying to figure out my words correctly here. Sometimes the media is a little, and not us, the bad guy.
Not us.
Everybody else. Yeah, everybody but us. The three of us are the only ones that are good.
Yeah, everyone else, the national media that makes those statements, the like to bring it back to Lamar about you can't criticize players. It's like, well, then none of us should have jobs. Then like the person saying it, Orlovsky shouldn't have a job if you're saying that. And I don't care that he played in the league too and knows what it's like. You're allowed to, have your opinion. So I think you critiquing a very strange opinion is completely fine. I think it's you're staying in your lane. So no, I would not say you're aggressive.
Do you think, am I making too big a deal out of this, Sessler? I feel like for real that this Saban, like the fans are too crazy and the lunatic sect that Herb Street talked about and Orlovsky, like you're a loser. I think this is like move over Joe Buck. He has said, okay, the Randy Moss fake pulling his pants down, like that's disgusting or whatever he said. He's made his apologies for that and said, okay, maybe I got a little out of bounds with that one. I think this is a new era of this. I can't recall this happening before, that where it's all couched though in some weird sort of like, no, we're just trying to be decent, when all they do is attack and disparage their football. And but when somebody else does it, now it's wrongheaded for us to be doing it. It's very strange, right? I mean, do you or am I the one who's making too big a deal out of this?
You're making much too big a no. I'm just kidding. Like I completely agree with you. Like I'm sorry, but I mean I'm of a certain age, and so I can be. You could categorize me as you wish as well, but we need to learn how to experience defeat and loss. And we need to understand,
point, right?
Yeah, we need to understand that like in the biggest moments of our lives, but also athletes and watching them, that we fail or we succeed. And succeed means more when we understand the failure part. And if we're going to drown out that someone failed and no one failed ever, then the success starts to become bland. But I would say one thing about you on top of it, like you don't come across as angry or wild on this front, because there's always a bit of levity, right? There's a bit of levity, there's a bit of life, there's a bit of just like we're human. And these are human beings. We fail, we succeed. If we can't learn from athletes failing when we're young, when we love sports, then from who? I mean, I'm not trying to preach anything either, but I think like this idea that no one failed or succeeded, like, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's your sin. Then why is Lamar so sad? If he didn't do it, then why is he so bummed out? Why can Mark Andrews, at the time of this recording, 72 hours after that loss, he hasn't been able to face the media yet? Well, if it's not his fault, then what's he so bummed out about?
Right.
Well, you can't connect those dots. There's something else going on, Dan Orlovsky, with Mark Andrews that we're not aware of. Yeah, it's a bunch of pap. Here's another one that I was thinking about too. Is if you're gonna cheer for one team, that could hurt the other team's feelings so much as in political campaign season, equal time for both candidates. You have to if you cheer for one, then you have to cheer for the other team equal amount of time over the course of the 3 hours. Fair?
Well, that's like what a mom does. Like
Yeah.
when you'd watch sports with, like, you'd go over to your friend's house to watch a major, clash between, like, in the AFC title game, and like the mom's like, I want to root for both teams because I don't want anyone to be hurt. But like that's not what I do. Like you've got to I like siding with something and riding on the ups and downs of it. Like I want to feel, but I know what you're saying, because it's like we're in this world now where maybe that's the new sports fandom, is you just don't have it. You don't sign up for anything.
Why can't we just appreciate greatness? Because that's not what's interesting to us as sports
No.
fans. Yeah, I appreciate the greatness. If I'm watching my team, the team that I have identified with by hook or by crook, none of your business how I landed on that team. Maybe my dad got me a hat of that
Right.
team when I was 4 years old. Maybe I decided 15 minutes ago, I think that guy seems funny, and so I'm going to root for his team to win. However you come to that, what are the stakes if you aren't rooting for something? When you watch just sit back and enjoy it. It's not a painting. It's one guy or one team trying to do something. And then in most cases in sports, there's another team out there, another guy out there actively trying to stop them from doing what they're trying to do. Don't root for that though. Don't root for one side or the other. Everything, it really is life imitating art. It's again, we do go to the movies. We see the entire Avengers franchise. Everybody understands Thanos is powerful. He's the most powerful, in fact. He can kill all our favorite superheroes with the snap of a finger, or at least he can kill half of them. We understand that he's in the way. If you want to regard Patrick Mahomes like that, because Thanos doesn't exist in a three-dimensional way. Neither does Patrick Mahomes for any of us watching him at home. It's not an indictment of Patrick Mahomes, the child of Pat Mahomes Sr. and the mom and everything that he's about and everything he'll ever be. We're talking about his football, and he's winning too much, and we want to see our guys win. That's fun. Why are you trying to take away our fun and the excitement of the third act, of the big blockbuster movie. You're trying to tell us like Iron Man and Thanos, chill out. You're both really powerful. Stop doing that, man. It don't matter. And you people in the theater, when Thanos turns into dust and you cheered, you're losers. How could you do that? Yeah, I mean, like, right? I mean, it really makes my head spin. Here's the other one that's new is that the Ravens specifically, I've never heard a team do it as much as the Baltimore Ravens do it. A lot of Bills, unsurprisingly, no one believed in us. Chiefs, yeah, chasing a three-peat. Some people didn't believe in them this year. This is how they rally themselves. After the game, though, the Ravens once again, and John Harbaugh says it on Hard Knocks every week, like, only we can beat ourselves. Only we can beat ourselves. I submit that you lost, but also the Bills won. Both happened. I don't think you beat yourselves, maybe. By the way, good advice for Deshaun Watson, or he should have taken that advice, beating himself. But
it wasn't Ravens 29, Ravens 20. Like that's not the score that we look at in a sports page. Like another team beat you, to your point.
Right. But I'll allow for both sides. Like, okay, you contributed to your team not winning, but the other team did in fact beat you. Like, it's like, is this, that's a big one on TV. And then there's a lot of deep breaths taken before the analyst can, it's a panel, like after the game, like, did Josh Allen and the Bills win this game, or did the Lamar Jackson and the Ravens lose it? And they go like, well, John, that's a tough one for me because, I have all the respect in the world for Lamar Jackson. And did he have it? Then there's a lot of self-interviewing. Did Lamar Jackson have his best game today? No, he didn't. Would Lamar Jackson tell you that he didn't have his best game? It's hard for me to say. Yeah, he would. Or wait, no, he wouldn't. Now I've gotten confused by my own line of questioning myself. Anyhow, let's look forward. Let's put this behind us. We have 4 teams remaining. We have Jaden Daniels. Dan Quinn comes in there. All of a sudden, by the way, as I said before that game was played, you got to feel a little bit upset if you're Dan Campbell. Like, it took him 3 or 4 years to do this massive overhaul of the sad, moribund Detroit Lions franchise. And then in 2021, we did this. And then in 22, we brought this person in. And that really took us to another level. Then we went through some tough losses, and that made us stronger, like see all that. And then the Commanders are like, yeah, we just drafted that quarterback. Yeah, that was our turnaround. Yeah, we did that. Like, damn it, nobody told us we could just do that. Who, though? So it's Jaden Daniels and the commies. It's Saquon, it's Jalen, it's all that stuff with the mighty defense in Philly. Mahomes, we know the stakes there, although we don't talk about them nearly enough because we're so empathetic and so sad for Lamar and Josh Allen and everybody else. We aren't talking about the fact that Patrick Mahomes is 120 minutes away from being solidly the greatest football player of all time. There will not be a debate in the quarterback league. He will immediately vault past Tom Brady. The Kansas City Chiefs will establish themselves as the greatest dynasty in 60 years of Super Bowl and all the rest of it. But instead, we have to wring our hands and weep for Lamar Jackson and possibly for the Bills. Okay. And then there are those Bills. Who are we rooting for? Who can we feel good about? Who can we criticize as well as we head into title weekend?
Wow.
I know that's a big one.
Well, I'm kind of just rooting for like chaos. That's typically what I want. And I think the most chaotic result is the commies just winning the whole thing. They just win the whole thing. They came out of our blind spot, pulled up alongside us, and they take the entire thing. And like that it's not like I'd feel bad for the Bills to lose that Super Bowl, but let's say it's the Chiefs, and you're not going to like the uniform matchup, but I just think the Commanders go and take the entire thing, and this entire NFL season feels, I wouldn't say fraudulent, it just feels kind of like a bit of a trick, a bit of a hoodwink.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I root for. I want to see the craziest thing occur, and that would be it.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking like I'm trying to go back to the Avengers franchise and identifying the right movie. It's a little bit like not Captain Marvel because that was pretty good, but then like she came in like the 40s or whatever, and then she vanishes off into space or 60s maybe or something. And then she comes
Sure.
back to save the day right at the end. You're familiar with you're up to speed on the
I
Avengers,
I I,
right?
I believe I know what you're referring to there. Yeah.
Maybe it's like a you know what it is? It's like it it's like Ant-Man. It's you might have enjoyed Ant-Man, but it's kind of neither here nor there in the big picture. Like
Right.
Ant-Man is Ant-Man. He's not like so if the
Aptly named.
2024 season is like the commies win it and it's just kind of a weirdo season. It's like when the Buccaneers won it
Yeah.
in 2002. It's just sort of like it counts. I mean, it's in there. It's I mean, you can't erase it. You're not gonna like take if you're gonna watch all the Avengers movies, Ant-Man's one. You gotta watch it. Like if you want to say you saw them all, then you gotta watch Ant-Man. But like nobody really thinks it belongs up there with all the other ones, right?
I think it's the perfect comp. Like it exists in history and we're not denying it, but we're not understanding why it happened or why we engaged so much with it.
What's
We
sadder if Josh Allen gets past Patrick Mahomes and then loses in the Super Bowl, or Patrick Mahomes getting to the Super Bowl and losing to Jaden Daniels?
No, I think like, oh, well, okay. The Bills losing in the Super Bowl is sadder. We've been there. Like, I mean, we're of the age where we saw that happen 4 years in a row. And like, even though this team has nothing to do with that team or that experience, it's all attached. And it would just be like the Bills kind of are a different version of Lamar Jackson, where it's like, I
That's
know
right.
that I'm supposed to feel all this goodwill towards them because they're from Western New York. Is that the reason? Because we wouldn't name a franchise from Buffalo if we started the league today, or I don't know what it is. They're just a little sad, and so I've got to root for them. Like, so that would be sadder. Nothing that happens to the Chiefs would be sadder because we would just base it against all the good fortune they've enjoyed.
It's nobody, it's not like right. It's exactly right. And I get it. If you are a long-suffering Bills fan, good for you. I hope you get over the hump and get to celebrate. And I hope it's everything you expect. I hope the same for Browns fans. Not exactly,
Well,
but you know what I mean.
not yeah,
You know what I mean. You know what in the big picture.
theoretically, yeah.
But it's also nice. Like again, to wrap it up. I'm sorry. I'm becoming ponderous if I haven't already. But the there's something about the hierarchy and those stakes and the rivalry that transcends the players who more and more are going to come and go after one season or three. They're not even going to be the same tenured guys like Clay Matthews was. Like every time the Steelers played the Browns twice a year, I knew Clay Matthews was going to be playing there and I was going to come away with raw feelings towards him. A little less so, but the hierarchy remains and the history remains. And it's nice to have it over some fan bases. It doesn't mean that I feel like Pittsburghers have a right to go to Clevelanders' homes and egg them, or just go into their house and be like, "You're out. I live here now." Like I'm not making a statement beyond football fanning. That's all I'm talking about. But it's nevertheless fun as an element of your existence as you go through it year after year. But what kind of I feel like the Orlovskis of the world like kind of want to retroactively now to your point about the Bills. What makes the point that QB wins matter and they are everything, and trying to soften the edges, sand them off and be like, Lamar's still great. Yeah, he is. That's why it's fascinating. That's why it's so endlessly compelling that he can't get around the other superhero guy. That's why we love to watch it. And nothing really proves that more than the Buffalo Bills, who we put alongside the Cleveland Browns and New York Jets. And so we've been to four straight. We did one of the most remarkable things in the history of football. We went to four straight Super Bowls, and they're pitied. That's the feeling people have about them. It's like, oh, those poor guys. Those poor guys. Like, hey, we went to four Super Bowls, but those are the stakes. Win it all, or people will either blame you or they'll feel sorry for you. And a lot of people don't like people feeling sorry for them and all that kind of stuff. those are the stakes. That's what's fun. And I wish people would stop trying to diminish those because they know one of the people who played in the games. Like, yeah. No, 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 no. I know the guy who played Thanos, though. He's a great character actor. Wait, who was? No, he was. That was a good actor.
He
Big
is a
time
good actor.
actor.
What's his name? Hold on.
He's a handsome devil too. Eddie Spaghetti knows all those guys.
Josh
Who is
Brolin.
it?
Yeah,
Josh
Brolin.
Brolin. Yeah. See,
No Country
yeah,
for
like
Old Men, please.
that's exactly right. All right, listen, I've held you way too long, so let's call it quits here. I don't know if we accomplished anything. I just had to complain, and I felt like nobody would be more bothered by the rote kind of, the meaningless turns of phrases up to try and make people like these poor souls who are worth $100 million and are, as you say, not hearing any of this right now because they're on a white sand beach with a couple of foxes right now. Like they are worthy of our empathy right now. And
Yep.
so I thought, who better than you, who's been through it for years and can maybe make some sense of like who deserves pity and who doesn't.
I appreciate the chance to unpack it. And I would say that outside of the three of us, um, people have a lot of exploring to do, self-exploring. Not the three of us, but other
No.
people. The other people need to take a long, hard look at how the discourse around sports, around life, and we hope that they can come and achieve what we've achieved at some point.
Last question for you, like to get you on the record with an actual kind of football thing, but
Yeah.
what rooting interest wise, where do you come down on wanting to see, you say you want chaos? I don't, it's not like I'm actively like, go Patrick Mahomes, do it, man, do it for Missouri.
Sure.
I don't care, except that I know future Dave will appreciate the conversations that include this Chiefs era to be able to say like, okay, 60s Packers. I mean, I know it's nerd stuff, but it's what I love, 70s Steelers, 80s Niners, early 90s Cowboys. These are the fun conversations to me and trying to make sense of them and how they stack up. And people are like, what's it matters? Like, what's any of it matter? Then we shouldn't watch sports then. If it doesn't matter, then what are you intrigued by? But I feel like I kind of won't hate. Kind of the worst to me is I'm the opposite of you, I guess, ultimately. A rookie QB running the table for the Washington Commanders will be unsatisfying to me. Whereas saying like, I saw that team three-peat, that's the best team of all time. I think that will mean something more to me in 20 years than any other result.
I think it will mean more. Like from a let's look at sports angle. And, because we're of a similar age, we're like those Niners teams, the Cowboys teams, the whole NFC for 17 or 18 years in a row kept dropping bombs on the AFC. But I'm a little like too young for the 70s Steelers teams and stuff. But like, it's a very meaningful thing if they go and do that. So the opposite of my chaos like request is I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with that. Like, I don't find them to be the most enjoyable dynasty of all times. Like, they're methodical, and it seems to be based around like two or three people always. It's like the same two or three people, but like, that's okay. I'm also at the point where I'm like, whatever's gonna happen, just happen. I'll be all right with it. I'm not gonna make a big stink about it one way or the other. Like, I want to care. I want to care, but like my team, like again, like I root for a team that is in the deep distance. They feel like they're in a different sports league than these other teams in the NFL to some degree. And so it's like I like at some point like I will accept what occurs.
Well, yeah, that's right. I think that seeing I do see, you made me think about another, that's a whole nother conversation though, so I don't want to even get into it, but that's exactly right, that the way the Chiefs are doing it now, that they sort of solved something like, oh, not only can we get by without Tyreek Hill, on some will be different by getting away from that splashier version of ourselves, and we'll just do it 9 yards at a clip. And it's like, Well, that won't be fun to watch. And that is sort of, that's probably where I park my car in the same garage with Orlovsky, which is saying like, it's like, I like these guys hitting the gas in the big spot, like, no, whatever you do, don't do anything like that. Just play it real, make sure you're driving the speed limit and we'll be okay, is kind of the message. That's not very much fun either.